Great. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We're here for the Aldridge Foundation's Creative World of Work Week, and we've gathered together a collection of artists to speak a little bit about their life and world in the industry, how we got here, and to share some thoughts and ideas between us, and equally to get some questions from you as we move along. We have a chat function to pop your questions in, so please do put those in throughout the conversation and we'll answer as we go. You can also just chat with us, so if you need anything, we're here. We're going to start with a little intro, so I'll begin as I'm talking right now. My name is Amelia Doncourt. I'm based in London, in South London. I'm an actor, writer and facilitator. I graduated from LAMDA, the London Academy of Music and Dramatic Arts, a fair few years ago. And I've been working as an actor, voiceover artist, but also I put my fingers in lots of pies and do lots of different things as I move through this kind of wild work world. So that's my short bio, and I will now pass you over to Julia Pond.
Thanks, Amelia. My name is Julia Pond. I'm a dance artist and facilitator. I'm an American in London. And I suppose like Amelia, I've done a lot of different things. I'm someone who you could say has had, I recently came across the term squiggly career. So I've always been a dance artist, but I've also worked in tech for about 8 years. And also teach some yoga. So I find all those strands have kind of helped me navigate kind of how I see myself in the world, but also just doing what needs to be done to navigate the world of work, really.
Hi, everyone. My name is Michelle Concha-Herco. I live in New York. I was previously a performer in dance. I was a professional dancer. I am also an actor, had my hands in both cookie jars at the same time. Currently, I am an actor producer. I'm also a teacher. I teach theater to kids ages 2 to 18. So that's a widespread. Still performing, still producing. I produce music, I produce theater. My life is all encompassing of the arts. I can't imagine. I feel it's cyclical. So I just, can't live or breathe without the arts. So here we are.
I've noticed a theme among all of us that we all sort of have our fingers in a number of artistic pies, and I also do. I am a composer and a performer and an educator, and also I do a fair amount of sound engineering and recording engineering. And I also live in the United States, north of New York. And I would say music is the umbrella of all of the things that I do artistically, but there's different domains that I work in and different ways to approach the world of work, as Julia said. So that's me.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm interested already in these parallel ideas of squiggly careers, which I imagine is something we all connect with quite deeply. And it's a very wide question, but I'd love for us to open with, how did this squiggly career happen? How did you get here? So, and please answer however best suits you in terms of perhaps education, qualifications, things that have really supported you along the way. And if anyone has any immediate thoughts, please go ahead.
Well, I'll start. So I started my life as an artist as a 6th grader. So that put me at around 10, something like that, a long time ago. And I started by playing a cello. I walked into my orchestra class and my teacher had all the instruments on the floor and said, go. And all of us walked in and just didn't know what to do. So, I tried the violin and I was like, I tried the bass, and then I landed on the cello and I just fell in love with music, and in a whole other way. I'm Colombian, so by default, we like music a lot. But I found that it just was another medium. And then, and that led me to dance. And I danced with Houston Ballet as a kid. And then I went to performing arts high school. And then I ended up almost at Hartford Ballet, but then I ended up at Juilliard. And then after Juilliard, I, floated among many different companies, both in South America and the States, and then landed in the Lori Bella Love dance company, where I found myself expressing in an amazing way my physical instrument, which I think as artists, that is so important, your physical instrument. And then, at the same time I was acting, and, got into that, studied that as well. And I was off to the races, and that was it. And here we are today. And, I then found myself so intrigued by producing, and what does that mean? And like, how do you make that happen? Because as artists, I find that oftentimes we just want to create and be, but how do you make that happen? And I felt that producing helped me answer those questions. Like, how do you get from point A to point B? How do you get from the page to the stage in any way? And I found that was like so important to find out also to the business side, because as artists, we know how to create, but how do we do the business? And that was where like I've found myself landing and educating as well.
Thanks, Michelle. Yeah, I'm struck by I've noticed that in the recent years I started getting more involved with the, say, more background stuff, so writing and figuring out, not just I trained as an actor, so I very much wanted to be on the stage and be on the camera. And then in the last few years I really started thinking about actually who's writing. Yes. What are they writing? Who are they writing it for? And what words do I wish I was seeing? And so I very much hear that producer thing. And I think one of the things about being an artist is actually the ability to shift and change and keep learning and growing, and knowing that it's not one thing. And I know when I was at drama school, I had this idea that I was like, I'm an actor, that's what I've got to do, I need to be employed. I even thought that people who did other things, I was like, oh no, it's not good if you do other things because you're not focused. And actually, of course, I realized all of the ways I've learned, not just doing other creative things, but all of the jobs I've done, the bars I've worked in, the shops I've worked in, the people I've met along the way, the stories they've told me, which have contributed to stories that then I've written and told and shared. So the process is kind of always evolving and engulfing lots of different things. Julia, tell us a bit about your journey.
I was very into dance as a young kid. So from the age of 5, I just wanted to do dancing. I loved musical theater as well. So I watched a lot of films like Chorus Line and West Side Story on repeat, and thought I would be on Broadway. And then I kind of realized I'm not a very good singer. And I sort of pivoted to modern dance when I was studying at college at Boston Conservatory. And really fell in love with like kind of the expressive potential of the body and of choreography, and then I kept with that path really until I was 27, when I moved to New York City and danced for Lori Bella Love, which is where I met Michelle. And then I had a mega switch. So I moved to Rome and studied international relations. I did a master's degree. Bonkers, right? I learned Italian. I worked at an NGO for 6 months. I think it seemed like a total break with my dance life, but I was really curious about understanding who I was outside of dance, and did I even exist outside of dance? And then of course, this is how my life has gone, but somehow I kind of got drawn back in, but in a different way. And so I started, I worked at an artist community called the Art Monastery for a couple years. And that was a whole new way of experiencing myself in the arts, because I got to, we were trying to create something about daily life, not just create art pieces and make some dance steps fit together. And I found that really inspiring. And then when I moved to England, I think I kept with that same, I think that taught me something about that art practice doesn't, and that I heard you, Amelia, and Michelle saying, is that art practice isn't just necessarily like the pieces you make or where you perform. It's also something about how you construct your life, and that things become grist for other creations later on, and you don't always know how that's going to work. So anyway, I ended up in London, got a little internship at a tech company, and I started working there alongside my dance work. And so I kept creating and choreographing, and was doing editorial work. And then I kept that up for about 8 years, but it spiraled into like a full-time corporate job. I had to really then come to grips with, what do I really want to spend the next 20 years of my life doing? And the really strong answer was, you're going to do this again, really bonkers thing of going and doing a big creative reset, at the age of 41. And so that's what I'm in the middle of right now. And I've started making some work that incorporates my corporate life as well, like using PowerPoint presentations as a way to present a performance, and doing some fun experiments. And so that's how I ended up here. And then here I am talking to all of you. And somewhere way back in that, when I was like dancing around to music in the most fun, basic way in high school, is when I met Sarah. And then through those pieces that I made, she came and performed with me in Connecticut. We performed in a piece together and did some beautiful little collaborative interactions along the way. So just sharing that as well. These kind of, I think the reason I'm sharing that is because I think that there's something really fundamental about friendship and art, and the way that art can grow out of friendship. And it's a really rich place to look for creativity. At least it has been for me.
Thank you, Julia. Yeah, I hear that connections and tapestries. And for those of you watching right now, Julia introduced us all today for this meet, and of course now we build new connections and friendships. I'm already thinking, okay, next time I go to the US, I've got people to hit up. And I think that is the life of a creative, of an artist, of always seeing and being open to possibilities and people and stories and ideas. And on that point, I want to hear the stories, the possibilities and the ideas of Sarah. How did you tell us a bit about your journey to getting where you are now?
So I'm really glad that Julia was talking about friendship and sort of the intersection of people in the process of art, because while you were talking, I was thinking about how the communities in which I have been have had such a very strong influence on what I've been able to feel like I can do. So, for example, when I grew up, my whole family is very artistic. My mom was a guitar player and also a writer, a children's book writer, and my father played the piano, and there was always music in my house. My brother plays the drums, and it was a very natural part of life to be artistic and musical in my household. And so it was something I did all growing up. I played piano and sang and acted and did all the things. And I started to get the sense from my broader community that it wasn't a valid thing to do, to consider as like a real adult prospect. And so when I went away to undergraduate school, I made like a sort of bizarre hybridized choice to study theater and literature, but in a humanities way, not in a practice way. And it was a strange choice to make. I'm not unhappy that I made it, but the process of the next 10 years was of me sort of being like, no, I want to make music as a valid, legitimate thing. That's what I want to do. And I need to make space to not only believe myself that it's a legitimate thing for me to pursue, but also as I got into arts education, make space for other people and say, no, you can. We all have to say, yes, we can do it. to make more space for other people to feel like they can do it, and then we'll all get to do it, and it will become, it's like a constant maintenance of positive pressure around the boundary that it's okay to just be an artist, and you don't have to make any excuses or explanations as to why you want to do that. So after undergraduate school, when Julia was in New York and just before she did her left turn to Rome, I was in a bunch of indie rock bands, and I fell into sort of being a like a hired performer person, and then I got into engineering that way. A need for stability, so that's when arts education sort of took point in terms of my work. But all through there, I was performing and recording albums and reaching out to people, and then I think I went back for my master's in composition because over the arc of time, I wanted to, again, like make space for the legitimacy of what I actually wanted to be doing. And so I went to Vermont College of Fine Arts, which is a very, very, very supportive community that very explicitly tells you, no, if you have something that it is that you want to do, that is what you should be doing, and here's how we'll support you in doing that. And so that was awesome, and that's really informed my next piece after that. And now I equally compose and perform and teach in non-pandemic apocalypse times. I equally do those things. And I teach at a school for 6th to 12th graders, so secondary school, I guess, who have social emotional special needs, because my youngest brother also has Williams syndrome, which is it's a constellation of disabilities and abilities, but it's a lot of people with Williams syndrome have a strong interest in our faculty for music. So I had a lot of experience over the years working with young adults with special needs and helping to coach them in performance and help them advocate to make space for themselves to be performers and things like that. And so that's my journey.
Yes.
Morning in America.
Careers, we have to add a bit of chaos to this,
Exactly.
And with the world right now, there is a little bit of chaos, and I wonder if possibly being an artist is about embracing that chaos and helping reform it and reproduce it into something else.
Structure it.
Yeah. At the same structuring and then unstructuring everything all at the same time in this constant cycle. That's what we do, the makers. I want to move to Curtis has asked us a question about just talking a little bit about the audition process, how we get them, and how we beat the nerves. And I would possibly add to that as well, maybe not just the nerves of for an audition, but just sometimes potentially the nerves of being an artist. For me, being an artist in general, Sarah said about having to kind of fight for your validity as an artist. And for me, a lot of it, I felt nervy sometimes, particularly when I was younger, being able to, if you don't have a job at the time, being a freelancer, sometimes it feels nervy to say I'm an artist, I'm an actor, I'm a practitioner. And so part of my journey and my process has been about what am I when I'm not? Julia, you mentioned about the dancer and what are you not around a dancer? What am I when I'm not working? And am I still a creative? Am I still an artist? And of course I am, but it can feel in a world where you have to be, or it feels like you have to be employed by other people, where you have to pay your rent, where you have to find stability, where you have families and friends and you'd like to go out for dinner. Sometimes for me, holding my nerves is about holding my nerves and staying strong and saying, I'm an actor, I'm an artist. And that means I do lots of things. And I think actually that's what really helps me when I go into auditions, because I feel like a whole person. When I go into an audition, I'm not desperate anymore. I don't go in thinking, oh, please, I really need to get this, because I've got loads of stuff going on. I'm clearly copying Julia and Sarah because I'm also doing a master's program right now in gender, culture and media. My brain and my antenna for life is just so open right now. So when I go up for things, I've been getting, in this pandemic world, I've been getting all of these commercial castings, and I just do them really quickly because I just think I don't have much time. I just, you know, like, hi, great to meet you, just going to give you this, and then I'm done. And I've done 2 pieces of filming in the past month. It's not to say to not care, but I do think there's a fullness of life that really helps to let go of your nerves.
So when I was in my 20s, and especially right out of school, you're just like, you're like a horse, like ready to come out of the gate. And you're just like, I want it. I want to do it now. And we got to go, because I've gotten this far, because people have said I need to live up to an expectation, because. So you come out like ready to gallop. And I took a class once in audition in my 20s. And the one huge takeaway, which is exactly what you're talking about, Amelia, is don't make it the event of the day. Whatever that audition is, don't make it the event of the day. Plan 5 things you're doing before and 5 things you're doing afterwards. And do not make it the event of the day, because I remember I used to stew. I'd be like, oh my God, in 3 hours, I have this audition. And then I've got to think about, what am I going to wear? What am I going to do? How am I going to look? What am I going to say? What am I not going to say? You know, and when you do that, you're so busy in your head. So don't make it the event of the day. Go plan something else. Do not make it about that. You know, that is a huge takeaway that I took away from myself. Also, if you're young and you're auditioning, a really good technique I also used was actually notating the audition right afterwards. Like literally, I would sit down with a notebook and I would write out everything that happened. And then I'd close the notebook. And then like 3 or 4 days later, I'd open up the notebook and I'd read it. And then I could pluck out things that I missed, like in a very constructive, objective way. And I could then figure out how to do things better, you know, how to understand how you are in a room. Like, how do you take up space without feeling like, oh, thanks for seeing me, or, you know, or being, you know. So that, I think, as a young performer and auditioning, I think not making it the event of the day and maybe notating it were super helpful for me, because they allowed me to see things in a more objective way and understand. And now, you know, at this age, I'm like, okay, bye. It didn't work. Oh, look, it just slid right off. Exactly. It just slides right off your back, and you don't even, you know, I think as artists, you know, with time, rejection is not rejection. It's just another moment, you know, you don't take it personally anymore. And I think that when you're a young performer, it is so hard. So don't feel bad. Don't beat yourself up if you are beating yourself up, because that is part of the process as well, is what I would say.
I think, for me, there's 2 things, and one's like a practical point of just physical practice. Understanding how anxiety and fear work in the body is really helpful.
Yeah.
Understanding that when you feel afraid of something, it's because a very old part of your brain is telling your body that there's an existential threat to you. Mm-hmm. And being like, okay, to your point, Michelle, mm-hmm. my identity and survival is not dependent on how I do in this situation. It's just what these people think of me today. Mm-hmm. And if I'm not what they wanted, it doesn't mean that I'm going to die or be cast out or have to go survive in the forest on my own, which is what your brain is telling you. Your brain is like, oh, no, if I'm rejected, I'll have to forage for my own food, you know, like, no, brain, there's not a lion that's going to eat you if you get rejected. So understanding the physical process of your heart beating faster and your breath going faster, and then also trying, if you can, and this takes a lot of practice, to recontextualize that as extra energy for you. Mm-hmm. If your heart's beating fast and your blood's pumping fast, it means you have extra energy in your body to do this task. Mm-hmm. So that's one practical thing. And then the other is pretty much what you were saying, that your identity and validity isn't dependent on how you do just this one time. It's just this one time. And you do your best, and if your best isn't what they wanted, it's not because you're not valid. It's just because that's not what they wanted today. So taking the emotional intensity of the experience down, I think, can be helpful.
I have one quick thing to add about auditions, and I only heard the beginning of what Michelle was saying. It's so true, just about that. When you're first out there and you're first, it feels so like, yes, I'm going for this. And the one thing I really wish I had known or taken on board, that when I was going through that kind of early auditioning process, was an exercise that I did in facilitation training, where we had to go around and ask the group for something and try to get something done. And you would go around and everybody would say no. And only a couple people eventually got a yes out of this exercise. And at the end, we sat down to debrief it. And the facilitators, we hadn't known why it was a yes or why it was a no. And I'll just never forget, the facilitators said, well, let us unpack it for you. Everyone was instructed, who was saying yes or no, was instructed to say no 7 times. And every 8th time they would say a yes. And it was a big light bulb moment for me, because as the asker, I really realized, no, keep asking. Because if you keep asking, you keep showing up, you keep doing you, being you, the right thing will come to meet you. Something will come to meet you. And it's, just being with that I found really helpful.
Yeah, I love that, Julia. And I'm thinking a lot about reciprocity as well, that so often auditions, you be you and let them be them, because actually, the nature of an audition is that not everyone will get chosen for every job. So you're also checking out like what the team is like. You want to see how you get on with a group, whether that maybe be a drama school, a dance school, the director, the composer. So really, it's actually about, we talked about relationships earlier and friendships. It's also about like getting a good vibe with people, like knowing that you're going to work well together. So an audition doesn't have to be just about like, am I good enough? Or like, I'm so nervous about me, but just about this reciprocity of like getting to know people. And I've got jobs, people that I've met a long time ago, and then a decade later, I get a phone call. Hey, we met for this a really long time ago. Yeah, I remember. Do you want to come in and do this? And so be you. My biggest advice is always, you be you. Don't try and reshape yourself to do what you think they want, but come in being full, open you, because that's the person that they remember. And it might not work this time, but eventually, like Julia's saying, keep asking, and if you're authentically you, when the ask is right, it's a good thing. So I'm going to move on to Jazz has given us another question, which thank you, Jazz. You all seem multi-talented. Do you think that this is necessary to succeed as a creative artist today, or are people becoming more specialist in one area? And did you have to have multiple careers because it's so difficult to earn consistently in the arts?
1,000 times yes.
Absolutely. No, I think in music in particular, but maybe not in particular, a lot of disruptive technologies have made it easier to do many things that were separate careers before. Like, for example, a lot of people have the capability to do recording and engineering to a pretty high level at home now. But also, even while it's made it easier to access those things, it's made it more difficult because everybody has access to those things. So you have to be able to do all the things, and having multiple income streams is a thing for sure.
I think that also, to tie it into today's moment, which is where all you artists are currently at, what the industry was 10 years ago, 5 years ago, and what it is now in 2020 with the pandemic and everything that's happening in the world, and how do we see the arts going forward. It is even more of a necessity for you to be able to juggle and do lots of things and understand how things are done, because, at a time a year ago, I would go in to New York City to audition, to be in front of a casting director, to, either, or to record, even as a voiceover artist, I would record and go into a sound studio, and everything was done for me as a performer. It's a very fun place to be. But now in 2020, hello, I have to self-tape. I have to have lighting. I have to have a mic. I have to, yes. And then look at Sarah, like she has the most beautiful setup right now for that, if I need to record something, I go in a closet like this one behind me when I'm doing voiceover, and I close myself in a closet and I put my mic right next to me. But these are all things that used to be done for me. And now I have had to learn how to do them. And it's very important. I mean, I managed to book jobs because I've had to self-tape, because a virtual audition is a thing now. And how do you set up yourself for your best success? And by doing that, it's about power. The same way that we were just talking about, do you want to work with this person? You have to feel empowered yourself as an artist. You don't just give it all away. You also take some. And don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to take some. And part of that is, yes, understanding different facets. Yes, I managed a restaurant. I bartended. I did all the things in my younger years, but then I started moving into producing, and then that's how I would get paid. And then I moved into teaching, and that's how I got paid. And then, I was able to keep a revenue stream by, the voiceovers that I was doing, and, and saving. Oh God, please, people, save money, save, even if it's just 10 pounds, $10, 10 something once a month. You need to prepare. And that means inform, which means empower, which means, be willing to be open to those multiple things. Have your thing that you love, that you can't breathe, you can't not breathe without it, but also have those other things that help support that. And I think that is like a huge thing that's important.
The truth is, it is a complex career, I think, for any artist. And that's not just about finance, though of course finance can be difficult, but really at every stage, there's points when you can feel kind of dejected and low and just not have stuff together, because and for me, the thing that's really kept me going is just the notionality of continuous learning.
Yes.
Always trying to discover something else, and trying to find enjoyment from that, really, of not seeing it as a negative thing to have to pick up. Like when I got into voiceover, I did it by mistake. And now voiceover is one of the things that keeps my career ticking over. Mm-hmm. If I hadn't have had voiceover in the pandemic, I would have found it really difficult. Mm-hmm. So, I think it's like a double-edged thing, really. I do loads of different jobs lots of different elements and aspects of my career. Yes, to make money, but also to make myself. Yeah. Also because that's what feels really good. If I had all the money in the world, if I had a really big house and I had millions of pounds in the bank, I still would not just be sitting here going, I'll just wait till the theatres open again. Just, because I like working. I like telling stories. I like being with people. I think we all, as artists and creatives, we enjoy the cut and thrust of being with one another and sharing. And, I'm finding all of your words super inspiring now. So
even Curtis asks, and here we are, right where we started, how important are friendships and connections and professional networking sites? And the more people you meet, the more, there's LinkedIn, there's Facebook, there's, in New York, there's all kinds of different actory ways you can meet, and musicians as well. And and I've cross-pollinated, I've collaborated with musicians, I've collaborated with painters and writers, because that's what I love to do, is develop with writers, and you just keep building those relationships. And you have you kind of have to foster those relationships too. I mean, don't just, yes, yes, you'll meet somebody and then, years later you'll be like, oh, I need to call that person for that job. But some of it is also just, hey, what's going on? Start your own network. There's no reason why you have to go somewhere else. Start a network, like start a collaborative where you like meet once a month on a Zoom, because here we are in the world, right? And and you sit there and you talk shop and you figure out what's working, what's not working, who wants to do something, who wants to collaborate. That's so important. That's so important to keep that and to have that. So that starts now, people. That starts with you guys right now, where you're at. You start thinking about, and that's the beginning. That's the little nucleus of your relationships, and they're just going to keep growing as you move on in your artistic life.
I just wanted to link back to Julia and say that actually the reason that me and Julia met was through yoga. So it's also being open to those different streams of not being so kind of blinkered to the one kind of version of what your life is, but actually I've met beautiful creatives and artists in places that I didn't quite realize, and so it's fostering that. And so I don't have any like specific professional space, but that's like my official place where I log all the people that I meet, but I like to foster those relationships, and actually when you really click with people, then you start thinking about, oh, can we make this, or and so I think there's always kind of possibility bubbling up.
And exactly, like piggybacking on that, Amelia, is like, get curious about the people you meet in lots of different areas. Just get curious about them. I've always found online platforms to be more useful for maintaining some amount of connection than for meeting new people and developing new relationships. Like find out, where do people hang out, or what do you want to be a part of? What kind of conversations do you want to be a part of? And just have those conversations even with your two friends from school, and then start inviting some other people when you feel like it. Just keep, I think that curiosity is really key for me, and just like creating these relationships, creating these friendships, trying to be open to that. And not just in your field. Some of the best collaborations I've had have been with musicians, or been with actors, or been with, people from other art forms. And now I'm really interested in collaborating with people who are outside the arts entirely. So like dance and science, or dance, different, totally radically interdisciplinary stuff. So yeah, what interests you, what draws you, what makes you feel excited, who makes you feel excited, and then just, talk more to them. It's often reciprocal,
I'm going to move on to a question from Juliet, who's asked us, how easy is it to move from one area to another? For example, you train as a dancer, have qualifications in that. How easy is it to move to be an actor? Or if you've not trained as one, or did your course cover lots of things? And I can answer very briefly that I trained as an actor, and then life just keeps training you. So as I've moved along, I keep learning things. I always swear by the fact that artists and creatives, we have so many skills. We are taught, if you're learning instruments, if you're storytelling, if you're learning how to move and tell stories with your body, we have so many skills. And so often people think like, you do like the fluffy stuff. And I'm like, I do the fluffy stuff. I do I'm a freelancer. Do you know how organized I am? Like, I could be anyone's PA and I will just sort your diary out. I mean, I'm not, but I could be, and so a lot of the stuff I've done, I pick up stuff along the way. Voiceovers, I kind of slid into it. Training in yoga, which then moved into facilitation. I started doing role play, and then I started doing training. So often they kind of have links, and then you might take some like top ups and things like that. But also, as has been kind of recursive in this conversation, you also learn from colleagues and friends. And actually, I just got a new facilitation role working with a mental health charity that is through, I also hold women's circles that I started because of my yoga work. and that someone who I knew from them brought me in for that. So again, it's these kind of connections. It's not always formal training, but it's world training. But I know we're hurtling towards the end of our time together, and I want to try and cover as many questions as possible. Kind of a big one here. Do you have a favorite? I'm terrible with favorites. Maybe this isn't a big one for you guys, but for me, a favorite piece of music, theatre show, dance performance that has perhaps influenced your career, that you'd recommend to the students here? And that's from Georgie.
I didn't have a favorite piece of music or theater or dance. You know what did it for me? I was about to, I didn't know that I was about to take a right turn into committing to dance until I was watching through a doorway a rehearsal that my dance teacher was doing of this beautiful pas de deux, this like, you know, and we were teenagers, right? So like, you know, it was this teenage boy and teenage girl, and they were doing this beautiful pas de deux to this very contemporary music. But the connection, it was the connection of these two artists moving through space and time and music. It wasn't even that it was dance. It was the connection, the human connection of the arts. And I didn't know that back then as a teenager, that that's what I was formulating in my head. But as an adult now, I know that's what got me. It wasn't the steps. It was the meshing, the living of and breathing the arts that got me. And that's when I went, all right, let's dive into this head first. And like, this is it. My life is this.
For me, my favorite pieces, things, inspiration are ever changing and evolving with my mood, the day, the news, the weather. I know that, and in a similar way to Michelle, I think it is about those moments that just make your heart go. Like, I think of, you know, for me, I write a little and I write more scripts, but actually it's novels, and people like Toni Morrison, who, you know, The Bluest Eye, you read something like that, it changes the way you feel about being a human. And more recent things like Girl, Woman, Other, Bernardine Evaristo, these kind of things that really affect my process as an artist, actually not as an artist, as a person, because really my artist name is just a moniker that I put on, but all of my work is about being a person. And when I go to the theatre, things that change my life, I'm just pouring them all into this heart piece, and then seeing how they come out in other bits of work. So nothing particular, but I mean, my shelves are just full of, particularly women. I'm very much inspired by females, you know, in the current way of the world, and finding people that I can look up to and emulate.
I think I know maybe favorite artists, but also the pieces and things that are inspiring change. And then some things, it's that feeling of like, however you just put that was so brilliant, Amelia. What I've just seen has just changed who I am, or changed the world for me, or something. And you just have that like feeling when you leave. I remember seeing Meredith Monk perform at Jacob's Pillow like ages ago. That performance did that for me. It was the first time I'd ever seen singing and dance singing happen at the same time. And it really, I just left feeling completely whacked. There was a question that just came up though that I thought was so nice for us to maybe look at. So from Jazz, and if you could give only one piece of inspirational advice to a 16 to 18-year-old, what would it be and why?
To always that you're valid and that you're a gift to the world. You are a gift to the world. That's it. There's no why. You are a gift. And think of yourself as a gift to the world and to yourself every day.
Really about, and again, not in a cynical way, but really love yourself. Like, really hold on to the thing that you offer. Like, you are this unique individual with all the striations and variations of who you are. You are the only one. So hold on to that thing that you give. And for me, like, the journey is the journey. I can look back. I remember when I was 18 and I was picking drama schools, and you're like, oh, which one should I go to? And whatever decision you make, it is the right decision because it's the thing that you do. And I look at jobs that I didn't get when I was 22 and I think, oh, at the time I was like, this has ruined my life. I needed that. It's going to change my life. Yeah, it did change my life. It changed my life to get me to where I am now. The journey is the journey. And if you just jump on board, I'm not saying it's always easy or perfect. There will be tears, there'll be moans, there'll be crazies, all sorts of stuff's going to happen, but it is the path that you take. And for me, like, holding on to that has been the greatest thing, because it got me to quite literally here sitting with you guys now, with these other wonderful artists, and speaking out to you guys who are watching this and considering your career and lives in the arts. Let your journey be your journey and really love yourself, because if you do that, it's going to be okay.
I think mine is when you're something about always coming back into the present and asking, what is required now? What does this person need now? What is this world asking of me now? Instead of, sometimes it's easy to think about what you wanted when you were 12, and that might not be true anymore. And so what's true right now, and how can I act from the deep truth of that place? And one question that always helped me to do that is from Carlos Castaneda, and it's just the question, does this path have heart?
What I would say is, you guys have come this far because it's a calling. Artists, it's a calling. You have to. There's no can't, it's just do. Don't be afraid. Stay focused. Try not to let the noise in your head get in the way of just doing, because through the doing is how you find your voice, and whatever that voice is going to be. And that voice could take you to Rome. That voice could take you into voiceovers. That voice could take you into education. But as a creative, it is exactly like Sarah said. You are a gift to the world, and you have to open your heart and just let it shine for what it is. And don't be afraid, because you are you, and nobody is like you. And they need to see you and hear you and feel you and walk away and go, oh my God, because that's humanity. And that is what we as artists give to this world every day.
Thank you so much, everyone, for those inspiring, really heartfelt words. Yeah, I'm getting a bit teary. This conversation has really reminded me, as an artist who spends quite a lot of time in this one flat right now, and remembering that artistry and creativity is about the present, is about the now, and meeting the now again and again and again. It's not always about how much you're being paid. It's not always about the room that you're in, the space that you're in. You can be an artist and a creative in a multitude of places, a creative with your family, a creative online, a creative on the stage, but also a creative in admin. And so thank you so much to my colleagues and artists and creatives here today for reminding not just all of the students who are watching this now, but I think reminding each other this kind of kernel of art and heart that collide and coalesce each day with all of us. Thank you for your time today, everybody, for watching. And it's been a real pleasure sharing some of our thoughts and our journees around our creative worlds. Thank you so much.